Good afternoon, everybody. We're back again here. And we have now a very special guest with the next topic, Building Tomorrow's Payment for Europe and Beyond. It is the governor of the Banque of France. And unfortunately, of course, he couldn't make it in person. So he will provide a speech. And after that, we will have a couple of questions for him. So I would say a warm welcome to him. Can we also see him? Hello. Good morning, sir. As discussed, we are first going to do a little poll about a question that we are thinking of whether you can answer it or not, so that the governor can take that in his speech as well. So the poll is, the poll is, how familiar are you with the euro project and the concept of central bank digital currencies in the Eurozone? So can you put your hands up whether you're very familiar? Okay, that are just a few people. And who is totally not familiar with it? And don't be shy, just put your hands up. That's the whole point, right? Okay, so Governor, I think most of the people are not familiar at all with digital currency, CBDC in the Eurozone. So I give the floor to you to provide the speech before we go into the question zone.
Thank you very much, and I will try to provide some light on this European digital euro. But let me first thank my friend and colleague Ravi Menon very warmly for inviting me to speak at this Singapore FinTech Festival. I pay tribute to Ravi's 12 years as managing director of the MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and also to this excellent NGFS chairmanship, NGFS being the Network for Greening the Financial System, a very successful one whose global secretariat is based in Paris, in the Banque de France. It's another example of fruitful cooperation. Singapore is also for us, Banque de France, our Asian center with our special representative, Stéphane Latouche, who is in Singapore. 2 years ago, Ravi Menon gave one of his remarkable speeches here, centered on 3 characters from Greco-Roman mythology: Juno, Plutus, and Mercury. Today, I will run through another part of this Greek mythology, starting with Daedalus, the architect of a masterpiece that was built with a special purpose to imprison and keep at bay the Minotaur, a half-bull beast with a thirst for blood. Central banks are akin to Daedalus. They are the main architects of our current monetary and financial system. This system was designed to leave room for the private sector to innovate and develop activities that fit well into this global framework. This is why we, central bank, can be seen as the main, but not the sole, architects. Our architecture is nevertheless not set in stone. It has kept evolving, and it's set to evolve further, keeping pace with innovation. So far, we have been able to do so while avoiding monetary or financial instability, which is our Minotaur. Its mere existence had even been more or less forgotten. But the beast has been waking up recently with the rise of standalone and insufficiently regulated financial innovation. Among others, first-generation crypto assets, so-called stable coins, and DeFi have popped up one after the other. They bring positive innovation, I will come back to it. But these wild constructions, to varying degrees, have already led to excessive volatility, insufficient consumer protection, we could see it, IT vulnerabilities, failures, and insolvencies, and so forth, including money laundering, which may spread to the global financial system. Sure, the main architect orders the destruction of these constructions and forbids them from now on. Some advocated. My answer is preferably not. But this innovation needs to be regulated and supervised properly. It's a necessary condition for restoring trust and ensuring stability. As architects, we are also eager to build on the underlying distributed ledger technology, DLT, which offers clear benefits, such as increased transparency and interconnectedness. We look forward to shaping our constructions accordingly. Central banks are therefore, one might say, also doubly in charge of a third mythology figure, character, Ariane's bread, ensuring trust and creating new gateways so that anyone can find their way in the construction. Everybody knows Asia is tech-friendly, and first and foremost, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. This is perhaps less known, but so are Europe and France. And let me illustrate this morning concretely by recording what we have done so far and our projects in the pipeline. I will elaborate on 3 of them: wholesale CBDC, central bank digital currency, retail CBDC, and cross-border payments, and try, as said, to put some light on this digital euro. Let me start with wholesale CBDC, where the Banque de France has been a pioneer by conducting 12 experiments since November 2020, in the last 3 years. We have explored all identified cases on all types of DLT, public and private, with a wide range of public and private partners. These experiments have shown that central banks will be able to steer the money supply of wholesale CBDC, which is essential, this steering, to anchor the value of central bank money. We are testing various technologies in our experiments, and we are improving our own DLT, which is called DL3S. In parallel, we are exploring alternative protocols and blockchains, be they private or public. We are now also actively involved in the Eurosystem exploratory work on the settlement of tokenized assets in central bank money. It was launched last April. With our DL3S technology, we are providing one of the 3 solutions that will be used over the course of next year in experiments and trials involving real transactions. The Eurosystem has already published the envisaged eligibility criteria and a survey before a formal call of interest that will take place in the coming weeks and will roll out the experiments and trials over the course of 2024. Commercial banks and other financial actors will have a key role in the success of our exploratory work. In particular, I invite European and French banks to take the opportunity of these experiments to explore tokenized deposits. And let me stress this expression, which is a very promising technology. The BIS has made a strong case for this tokenized deposit in its last annual report in June, and I have the privilege to share the BIS. Recording these deposits on banks' balance sheet would mean they would differ significantly from stable coins. These tokenized deposits could potentially complement a wholesale CBDC. I then come to retail CBDC. After completing a 2-year investigation phase, the Eurosystem last month launched the preparation phase. This digital banknote, and this is probably the best summary of the retail digital euro, will have the same characteristics as the existing cash. It will be accepted everywhere across the euro area, thanks to its legal tender status. It will meet the highest privacy standards, and its basic functionalities will be free of charge for individuals. In addition, the digital euro will bring complementary advantages compared with banknotes. So, if you allow me, it's cash plus. It will allow the use of central bank money in e-commerce, in remote peer-to-peer payments, as well as for conditional payments. And it will foster financial inclusion in the digital era. We know how important this challenge on financial inclusion in digital is important. But let me stress that the digital euro will be distributed through banks. We are not, and we will not become competitors to commercial banks. Once again, money should remain a public-private partnership. The trust commercial bank money inspires is nevertheless anchored by its full equivalence and permanent convertibility in central bank money, one-to-one. Loosening this public anchor would sooner or later undermine trust. Digital central bank money will provide the necessary safety pivot, and it will also act as a platform for innovation. The digital euro scheme we are developing will enable the emergence of open acceptance standards, fostering convergence and offering common ground on which to build further innovations. The private sector-led EPI, European Payment Initiative, very promising, with its pan-European Villeroy digital wallet payment solution, will be able to take full benefit from our digital euro. I turn now to a more global perspective and the third project I mentioned about cross-border payments. These are one of the G20's priorities to address the present high friction costs, time lags, opacity, and low acceptability. And we know how these drawbacks are detrimental to millions and millions of world citizens, including for remittances. Central banks have built their monetary setups along similar principles around the world, but they lack, we should acknowledge it, operational interoperability. Let me mention two avenues for progress there. Over a short to medium-term horizon, we are exploring the building of bridges between various payment systems. Some projects could be implemented quickly. For instance, the BIS Nexus, which is aimed at enabling people to pay instantly across borders by connecting several fast payment systems from around the world, including our euro area TIPS. But longer term, more global projects could pave the way for new avenues. The BIS and the IMF are actively thinking about integrated platform and not only interoperable. They would bring together tokenized central bank money, tokenized deposits, and tokenized financial assets. The BIS blueprint for unified ledger holds strong promises that it would make various CBDCs natively interoperable, and it would significantly ease cross-border payments. We look forward to fully playing our part in this project. Meanwhile, we continue our experiments together with the BIS, the IMF, and national central banks. I am pleased to announce that the Banque of France will soon take part in the Mars Guardian project. Our common experiments, and I will translate Guardian in French, we say Les Gardiennes, will deal with multi-CBDCs and potentially tokenized deposits in cross-currency and cross-border repos. I will conclude after Daedalus with one of our contemporary architects, the famous American architect Frank Gehry. He once said, I quote him, "Architecture should speak of its time and place, but yearn for timelessness." This is precisely what we central banks are striving to achieve once more and together with private partners. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Governor. What we can hear is that there are very many good initiatives that have been done by Banque of France and by Europe, and I think we learned something. So we prepared a couple of questions for you. So question number 1, how would governance be managed on DLT platforms? And for example, how central banks would keep control over its wholesale CBDC?
You are right, this is a very important challenge. And as I mentioned quickly, this was one of the key elements of our experiment. In governance, we should ensure that the central bank can steer the issuance and redemption of wholesale CBDC to avoid any outsourcing of central bank money, which we wouldn't control. While at the same time, we should allow wholesale CBDC to be used and as a settlement asset by private players. We were successful in our experiments, and we were able to investigate further this issue of wholesale CBDC access and life cycle control over our DLT platforms, such as common or shared ledger platforms. We are now confident that the technological advancements make this management of central bank money feasible. But we keep on testing different models to identify which one is the most virtuous in terms of governance management. So to put it in a nutshell, we know it's feasible, and this is very reassuring. We are looking how to make it optimal, this steering of central bank money.
Yeah, and that will probably take some time. Okay, and then the next question, how do you...
But we are confident.
Okay, now that is great. How do you intend to reconcile the tokenization of finance with the requirements of ecological transition?
This is also a very important aim. And there should be no contradiction, no trade-off between innovation and, I mentioned NGFS, greening the financial system.
Yeah.
Both objectives should converge. We are committed to contribute while experimenting various blockchains that consume, I insist on them, very little energy, unlike those used, for example, by Bitcoins. And we are already making significant progress in this field. So it should not be a roadblock. It should not stop our innovation. There are solutions. Can I insist on another aspect, which is linked to your question?
Of course.
All this tokenization, all these DLTs can be also the catalyst for the transition to green finance. And we are running in our BIS Innovation Hub, our Eurosystem Innovation Hub, based in Paris and Frankfurt, also one experiment for developing the green finance with new technologies. Let me give an obvious example, which is how to share better green data. We know there is a very significant data gap in green finance. We are making progress. We are increasing our tools to accelerate the green transition by the financial system. Think of disclosure some years ago, now climate stress test, and tomorrow transition plans, which at least in the EU will be compulsory. All these tools, be they disclosure, stress test, or transition plan, require obviously a significant leap forward for data, and here digitalization will help us. This is the purpose of our BIS Hub experiment.
Yeah, and I think that is a super important point, because we started in Singapore just 2 years ago with the whole ESG saga, and we try to, keep it up. But I think Europe and France is much further already in that process, also from a legislation perspective. So thank you very much for that answer and for that addition. Then the last question. The Governing Council of the ECB recently announced the launch of a preparation phase. What will be the next steps of the project, and how will this link with the ongoing legislative discussions?
You are right. We should work in parallel on technology, on experiments, and on legislation. We were very active in the last 2 years about our investigation phase, and we made significant technological progress. We know more or less how it could work. But now we have to open the debate, because digital euro is not only a question for central banks. It's a question for citizens. It's a question for financial institutions, which will be important partners, as I said. It's a question for merchants. And so it will be a public debate. There was a proposal, a legislative proposal by the European Commission last June. We think it's a very important step forward. And I more or less agree with the proposal. But it's only a proposal. And we have a democratic process in the European Union, which is still seen sometimes as a bit sophisticated, I know, from outside, but believe me, it works. And we were able to deliver very important financial regulations in the past, even quicker than important jurisdictions I don't need to quote. And so we will have the Council, the European Parliament, and the Commission. And the ECB will give its advice. It will take months, perhaps more than 1 year. But it's important, because again, it's a new possibility, a new freedom we offer to citizens and to merchants. So it's really worth explaining, discussing, and deciding about this legislative proposal. It will take, as I said, 1 or 2 years, till at the latest 25. In parallel, we will go on with our technological progress, including, as I said, wholesale CBDC, which is also important, and we will run experiments and trials. It will not be at real scale. We have 350 European citizens, it's impossible. But with merchants, with some citizens, how it works. And so when we will have the green light on the legislative proposal, we should have made enough technological progress, this is the purpose of the preparation phase, in order to be able to issue for real this digital euro, I would say probably in the next 5 years, till 27 or 28, but we will see precisely.
Great. And do you think, if you think about outside of Europe, do you think that, how can Europe work together more with, for instance, Singapore or Asia? What are your views on that?
Yes, I think this is a question of interoperability.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it in the cross-border payments avenue I concluded with. We are already working on some projects. We will perhaps have one day a unified ledger, but this is a longer-term perspective. In between, we could perhaps build regional ledgers, including at the European level, and see how they can interoperate. The G7 issued some principles, some common principle for CBDC. The IMF and the BIS are working actively on these common principles. On our side, we will be aligned, we will be compliant with these common principles, and we strongly hope to work together with other important jurisdictions, including in Asia, such as Singapore.
Great to hear. Well, I know you don't have that much time anymore, but do you
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Do you have maybe time for one more question?
Sorry, because I really
You need to go?
leave.
Okay, no worries.
It's early morning in France.
I know.
And to be clear, I have an important appointment with the finance minister. I am an independent central banker, but I care for my appointment with the finance minister. And thank you very much for welcoming me.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for the speech, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, and have a good day.